can you take a roll call?
Commissioner Gaskell?
Present.
Commissioner Gatto?
Present.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Here.
Commissioner Manny?
Present.
Commissioner Merrick?
Here.
Commissioner Martinez? Commissioner Sepisi? Commissioner Stoklos?
Here.
Chairman Gray?
Present. Okay, we do have a quorum. We'll move on to communications. Staff, are there any communications at this time?
Yeah, so two items. One, our new plant commissioner, Amanda Martinez, has joined us. She was appointed Tuesday. So thank you for the quick turnaround on showing up and reviewing all the materials. And yeah, so she is replacing Kayla West. And it's great to see everyone here. Almost 8 for 9. I appreciate it. And then secondly, I'm just going to request, so items 2 and 3, as you kind of notice, kind of go together. So on the slides, I was just going to ask if you guys want to combine those. I'll give a staff presentation. Michael will follow me up, and then we can discuss it as a whole. And it will make a lot more sense once we get there.
Sounds good. That's reasonable. Okay. Welcome, Commissioner Martinez.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Nice to meet you. Sorry if I forget your guys' names today, but I'll try to remember next time.
Well, you're gonna be chairing the next meeting, so you better.
Sounds good. With that said, we will move on to the approval of the meeting minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the May 16th, 2023 Plan Commission meeting?
I wrote it. Second.
So motion made by Commissioner Gaskell, seconded by Commissioner Stoklos. All those in favor, say, of approving the May 16 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. We will move on to item 1 on today's agenda. Item 1 is a public hearing to consider recommending that the village board grant Joseph Vavrina, HR Green Incorporated, on behalf of Chick-fil-A and Stephanie Tremonis, a special use for a substantial deviation to the Park Place PUD, with exceptions to the village zoning ordinance, to construct a new drive-through restaurant at the outlet parcel for the property located at 16210 Harlem Avenue in the B3 PD General Business and Commercial Park Place PUD zoning district. Site plan and architectural approval will also be considered at the meeting. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
I hear a motion made by Commissioner Gatto, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. All those in favor of opening the public hearing say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. The public hearing is open. I did receive confirmation of the public hearing notice being published in the local newspaper. So anyone wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in before they speak, but after the staff's presentation. So staff, please proceed with your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Chair Gray. So the subject property is at 162 Harlem Avenue. So this is at the northwest corner of Harlem and 163rd Street. It is a vacant lot, currently part of larger parking lot that served the former Kmart, which is now including the Pete's Fresh Market Regional Warehouse and the new Pete's Fresh Market under construction. To the north of the subject property is Ascend Cannabis. So this site is part of PUD, a Park Place PUD, and it has B3 underlying zoning, general business and commercial. And it's surrounded generally similarly as such, apart from the east side across the street. So over there is a multi-tenant building and a medical center. And as I said, there's the planned unit development to the north, south, and west. Historically, for the history of the PUD, in 2023, early that year, there was a site plan that was generally for the Pete's Fresh Market drive aisle realignment. There was a site plan included for Chick-fil-A at that time. So you see that at the bottom corner of your screen. So the petitioner proposes a new construction for Chick-fil-A on that area. It is going to be a freestanding building with indoor and outdoor dining, a double-lane drive-through. The operator's model was described a little bit in the narrative and staff report, is how it can contribute to economic development, mentioning a successful retention rate for operators, about 98% for Chick-fil-A, and as far as employment, about 60 to 80 jobs. Anticipated hours are anticipated to be 6 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and notably closed Sundays. So given the popularity and use of the drive-through, the site layout will focus on minimizing any negative impacts that may have otherwise resulted in increased traffic. So the request is for a special use for substantial deviation. That means changing to the PUD, as the site plan is changed somewhat from 2023, and for site plan architectural approval. PUD by nature provides flexibility to the zoning ordinance and looks at the character of the overall surrounding area in that PUD. This is a PUD that has a proposal within the PUD that does have some exceptions. So we noted them: parking spaces, additional principal structure and sign to a single shared lot, wall signage, trash enclosure height, and some lighting. So up on screen is the site plan that is proposed, and I mentioned before that this is part of that Pete's former Kmart area. So all of that is actually one lot, and currently it is all one parcel. So the staff had talked with the petitioner about options whether or not to subdivide out the land. The petitioner is proposing to keep it as the same lot, but create a new parcel. So that will be a shared lot with Pete's. As far as access and circulation, there's a single point of entry. So the way this is oriented is right is north. So at the bottom would be Harlem, at the left would be 163rd, and at the top would be the internal drive aisle. So vehicles would enter in off that internal drive aisle and then circulate in clockwise one-way motion around the site. So as you can see, it's sort of a racetrack type of model. There's a double-lane drive-through that you see starting at the left. And as far as the pedestrian connectivity as well as vehicular, there's sidewalks that will be connecting to Harlem, and coming into the site, there's 2 crosswalks and you see 2 stop bars. Staff is proposing a condition that the sidewalk along 163rd Street be completed prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. So this is already noted for the Pete's development, but we want to doubly make sure that this gets done. So as far as operationally speaking, the development may it has 2 lanes, right? But during times at the operator's discretion, they may wish to close off the second lane. So in that case, they would put up magnetic delineators. These are like flexible bollards that would be there on the site. Other things I can point out. So as I mentioned, with the layout of the drive-through, it goes around the site. This provides maximum stacking. The petitioner did provide an exhibit showing that up to 53 vehicles could reach up to the clearance bar, which you see on the left. As far as within the site, some of the elements, aside from the building, there's 2 large canopies at the top and bottom here, and the trash enclosure is off to the left, but there's a storage room with it, so we're calling that an accessory building with trash enclosure. So that is the generals of the site plan. The landscaping, this is a site that's got some constraints, and the focus was really to help maximize any negative impacts on traffic. So with this design, there are some constraints where they can't quite meet the landscaping code, which it does have some rigorous requirements. So there are some waivers that are requested that would be for buffer yard, foundational plantings, parkway trees, screening of parking, and interior lot landscaping. Quickly with the buffer yard, deficiencies are not that significant regarding canopy trees in the buffer yard, just 2 deficient on the north, 2 quantity deficient, but there's evergreens that are proposed in that area. Similarly, there's other corresponding reasons for the relief. The canopy at the west, which is up at the top, does limit the amount of trees that go there. And as far as to the south, it's just a couple deficient there, but space is needed for site triangle visibility and for the ground sign. So overall, given these waiver requests, staff feels this is a thoughtfully proposed design, and there's generally a good variety of species, types of trees and shrubs located in a nice grouped manner along Harlem Avenue. And other things like looking at constrained spaces like that parking island to the immediate south of the building. It's rather small. The petitioner looked into that and removed a canopy tree just to make sure we're considering things like survivability. So as far as the architecture, I've got all 4 elevations up. The building itself is just under 5,000 square feet. As I mentioned, it's got 2 large canopies. There's several smaller canopies in total. 2 of the canopies, one notably is a freestanding one. So on these elevations, that's why you only see the 1 canopy. Now, as far as materials, it's a brick veneer with pre-finished metal. It meets masonry requirements. So if you like, I can just pass this around so you folks can see there's 2 colors of brick veneer, the light and dark brown, with a darker pre-finished metal. And as far as other elements, of course, there are wall sconces that help aesthetically show like a nighttime interest. And rooftop mechanicals are screened by a parapet. So here are some renderings that the petitioner provided. On the lower left, you can see the accessory building, which has storage that's intended for seasonal maintenance, cleaning type of items, as well as a double trash enclosure. And to the lower right, you can see the freestanding canopy. The petitioner did provide brick to wrap around the columns and has worked with staff well on that. Up at the on the right in the middle is the outdoor dining space. So as far as signage, most of it is compliant. There's just a couple of exceptions. So ground signage in our zoning code, you can have additional ground signage, but it has to be at least 300 feet apart. So on the other side of 163rd, there's an existing ground sign. So that's about 120 feet as I measure. So this is the proposed location of the sign. We feel is logically situated for good visibility. And the second exception would be for number of wall signs. So we allow 1 per frontage. So on the entry side on the south, there's an additional welcome sign. So we feel this is a welcoming feature that can work with the Chick-fil-A branding. And then the rest of the signage, it meets code, 2 menu boards, a clearance bar, 25-foot flagpole, and various traffic accessibility signage. As far as parking, so this type of use in our parking section of the zoning code would be a drive-in eating establishment. And this has a very heavy requirement of a minimum of 1 space per 30 square feet gross floor area, but not less than 20 spaces. So given the size of the building, this would mean to meet code 162 spaces would be required. They've provided 43, 2 of which are handicap accessible. So with this exception, staff wants to note that this is a slight improvement over the previously approved 2023 site plan, 2 more spaces. And the provision of the vehicle stacking in the drive-through lane is significant enough that it helps contribute to the facility's ability to keep vehicles on site. Last is lighting. So all the images of the fixtures are up on top. The site lights, petitioner worked with staff to confirm that they will have the same height to match the adjacent Pete's development, 25 feet high. A couple of exceptions are needed for lighting. Foot candles at the property line. There's about 100 feet approximately at the northern portion of the west side. that go beyond that, but not any more than 3.2 foot candles. So nothing too significant. We do want to note that when you divide a parcel, we consider that still a property line, but we do know that all overflow light will be located in that same lot. So secondly, the building cylinder, wall sconces, the spec sheet mentioned up and down lighting. So staff is proposing a condition to require a shield to ensure no uplighting. And then as far as that flag that I mentioned before, they want to illuminate it just by a floodlight at the ground level. They will provide louvers and visor to help direct any light that may spill off. So it's staff feels it's a successful form of glare control for adjacent properties. There's a accent angled wall sconce, trash enclosure lights, and under canopy lights. So that concludes the staff presentation. I have the petitioner, Mr. Vavrina, here, as well as a representative from Chick-fil-A.
Okay, if the petitioner would like to present, I'll ask you to come up and I'll swear you in. State your name, please.
Joe Vavrina.
Joe, do you swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, please proceed.
Thank you. My name is Joe Vavrina with HR Green here, representing Chick-fil-A tonight. To my left is Jason Hill from Chick-fil-A. He's the principal development lead on this project. First, I'd like to thank staff for the excellent presentation outlining our proposal and going through all of the exceptions and things that we're asking for, as well as all the help that they've provided thus far getting us to this point. Beyond that, I really don't have anything else to add. Appreciate everyone's time here tonight to consider this proposal. I know Chick-fil-A is very excited about getting this project moving forward. It's a long time coming. We've been talking about this for quite some time, but looking forward to proceeding. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to ask the commission for some comments. So, Jason, I might just swear you in just to be,
Yeah, sure.
Jason, do you swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. And so that way you're available to answer questions. So just sit tight up there. I will ask. Let's begin with Commissioner Manny. Any comments?
Well, my only comment is I'm glad Chick-fil-A is coming really close to it. And I like the concept. And thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Gatto.
I don't have any comments or concerns or anything. I think it looks great. You guys do a great job with your drive-through. Like, I've never seen a fast food restaurant function the way that Chick-fil-A does. So you guys do a fantastic job. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner.
I guess the only question I have, and I don't know enough, I don't normally eat here, so I haven't seen these, is how many tables inside, and is the 2 handicapped adequate for people who would be going inside to eat? And I don't have a clue. We haven't really talked about indoor capacity. I mean, the 53 car stacking is pretty amazing, right? Which means it's clearly driven by drive-through and not eat-in customers, but clearly some folks must eat inside, right? And maybe that's a staff question, maybe it's a you folks question.
I can answer that. At least the ADA is driven by the parking that they're proposing in there, so.
It's based on the number of parking spots.
So that meets over the Illinois Accessibility Code.
Okay,
It's
thank
good there. How they arrived at the parking and the tables.
Yeah, I would say specifically, just like you've come across our parking standards before,
Yeah, I mean,
and they
they're
can be a
crazy,
little
yes,
much.
yeah.
140, even if it wasn't like Chick-fil-A is majorly drive-through based, because it's so fast and efficient, and clearly they are designed that way. So we feel the 43 parking spaces for what they have inside. I think. Did you know the exact number of tables and chairs inside for seating?
Yeah, we have 74 seats inside,
Yeah.
and I don't have the patio plan in front of me, but there's probably another
16.
16 to 20, 16 outdoors.
So it's around 2 to 1, which is a much better ratio.
I was just thinking about
Yeah.
handicap only, right? I know that the parking stuff, we've talked about this before, that's based on Black Friday from 50 years ago, right? When everybody used to go out and shop at that time in person, right? So I get that.
And there'll be shared parking with, there will roughly be shared parking with Pete's here, right? So it'll all stay one lot. And then the improvements from an accessibility standpoint are amazing compared to what Kmart had. Like, there was no sidewalks on Harlem, there was no connections between the different properties. So theoretically here, even if you park at Pete's handicap stalls, you'd be able to take walkways and get down here on an accessible route. So the improvement of the site from an accessibility standpoint is gonna be better than, so way better than it was, and will meet the accessibility code requirements
Thank you.
overall.
Yeah, my question actually related to the parking also, and I guess until we revise our codes, they'll always have to come for exceptions. Is the parking one of the exceptions that's being requested now?
Yes.
Mostly, yes. It's a staff directive as well to fix those. Obviously, we're doing our comprehensive plan right now. We'll get into that maybe at the end of this meeting. But once that's kind of done and we have some direction given, we'll probably be looking at updating definitely the parking, if not a lot of the zoning ordinance as the next major project. So it is just one of those things I think all of us, when we got here, we were like, wow, these numbers are not typical. So
Yes. Very good. Okay, that was my only question.
Okay, Commissioner Gaskell.
Well, your question comes up about the parking again, and handicap accessible. I mean, 2 spots just doesn't seem enough, you know? I mean, I for one use them. So I see everywhere I go a lack of handicap spots. You know, so it just seems like 2 spots for a business like this just doesn't seem like enough.
We can talk with them about it. They're meeting the minimum requirement, right? So we can certainly.
Is that the minimum requirement of the reduced 43
Yes.
capacity, not the initial required 53? Because to Commissioner Merrick's point and Commissioner Gaskell's, my mother-in-law has the handicap sign, and we were on vacation this past weekend, and we pulled into like an Arby's, and we got like the last of the 2 spots, and it's, even though there's additional parking and there's more crosswalks and whatnot for the Pete's Fresh Market, you certainly wouldn't want somebody parking in a handicap spot for Pete's Fresh Market and then trekking over to which I'm sure they wouldn't do, right? You're gonna go closer, but I'm just saying, I think that might be a salient point because it was reduced and then it's looked at the reduced criteria.
And having a pathway to walk, a sidewalk to walk all the way around, you know, that's part of the purpose of a handicap spot, so you don't have to do all that walking. You know, I could park in the middle of the parking lot and walk all the way to Chick-fil-A. That would, if I didn't have trouble walking, there wouldn't be an issue. I wouldn't even need a space. But the point is you want the space as close to the building as possible. You know, and
We could have them look at potentially adding an extra one in there or something. And how it fits and lays out with the accessible routes, so.
as long as you know that's probably going to lose you an extra space because they'll probably have to take up 2 to get 1 more in. Is that okay?
really,
Well, yeah, probably because it would go next to those 2 angles and they have to be 90. So I
No,
mean,
I don't think we have a concern, just bring it up to, as long as you guys don't have that as a
Yeah, but if you
concern.
think about people who are more ambulatory, they could park in the Pete's and walk over through that stuff,
Right.
and so it doesn't matter, because you got enough parking that's
Correct.
20 feet away, right, versus this, right?
Yeah, that's the salient point. I think it's that'd be more critical, because
Yeah.
you got tons of parking there, so outside of the complex, so, and you just gained 2, so if you remove those 2 to, have a ADA additional parking spot, it's probably a win. Okay, well, thanks for the comments, Commissioner Gaskell. Commissioner Stockley.
I'm good.
Okay, Commissioner Martinez.
I do have questions, so I hope I'm not repeating any from your workshop. I'm a little concerned with the harmony of the colors for the outlet buildings and the Pete's Market building. Just wondering if there was some sort of way that you can maybe have an architectural feature that kind of ties those buildings together? Just wondering if you guys had thought about that.
No, we haven't.
No. I'm wondering what the other commissioners feel about that.
Well, the one thing is, I don't have an issue with the, keeping it on the same lot, so the exception where you have an additional structure on the lot instead of being restricted to the one, and you're calling it, you're gonna parcel it out, but to Commissioner Martinez's point, it may be, since it is on one lot, it may be somewhat beneficial to have that tied together. You're gonna have the Pete's Fresh store, you're gonna have the Pete's Fresh warehouse, so I know Chick-fil-A is standalone, but in terms of the, it is not being, it's not gonna be, taken out onto as its own lot, so, anybody else, would anybody else have comments?
I mean, I would say, each of these has, like, Pete's has a known brand and color branding, and so does Chick-fil-A. And I don't think I have a problem with those. They're not the same, they don't kind of mesh necessarily, but each one is known for being exactly what it is. So I'm actually okay with them not lining up more closely in the color scheme. But I don't know enough about architecture to know about like things that would be built that would tie them together outside of that color, right? So.
And on new developments, often we will have those design standards. Obviously, this area's been in a redevelopment phase, right? So we have Ascend is also very different. It's gonna be right next to it and it's painted, well, it's not painted, it's stained gray. So you have a gray building, Pizza's got a heavy white and glass theme going with their building. This will be Steak and Shake, Sam's Club. It is very different and Peace to me, but we like those design features. Like if you go to Brookside Marketplace, you'll see common elements there when it's been a little newer. It is a little tougher to do on these infill ones because you're not starting from the beginning. But we can certainly share the plans with Chick-fil-A, so we can share the Pete's plans, make sure they have them and see if maybe there is some small feature or something sometimes just is nice, or there's a banding or some, just even a similar color brick or something that they use that can tie it together.
Yeah,
Color wise or material wise, we can
that's
look at.
exactly what I was thinking. Something, it can be something small as much as the canopy, color matching the Pete's Market window or something. Yeah.
Sometimes it's just like even a similar color of like something you're painting can help tie them together and make them look like they've been developed with a little bit of thought behind it, so.
If I could,
Right, but just to opine, since you're in architecture, I am. So, that's my profession. I tend to, Chick-fil-A has their brand, their color, their scheme, and as well as Pete's, right? Blending them or making them tie together, in my opinion, I wouldn't like that, I want to keep Chick-fil-A. They don't necessarily have to blend in. Similar to like the floor decor that was, one building, you got Hobby Lobby, and then the floor decor. And for that one, my opinion was like, they don't have to paint the same, make it distinct,
Well, in that one, we actually we just carried the white color over, so that way we had like the white was the same white, right?
So still from the street, they're obviously two different, businesses, and one, within those four walls, in the row, But again, that's just my, my professional opinion on the architecture.
Yeah, my comment was similar, and I remember our discussion about the development at the train station. And we were talking about the necessity of making them different, right? Each are different. So I guess there's a balance between like starkly different and then tying together with a little bit. But my preference would be to just allow them to be separate and not burden them with extra requirements you don't need.
And to some of the commissioner's point, Commissioner Merrick mentioned like branding, and I know they passed the color palette, and I know that's probably used on all of the Chick-fil-A's, right? Because you're gonna recognize the building by color too, so, I understand that it could be a nice add if you have an accent, but for me, it wouldn't be a deal breaker, right? I think that's, you know. Any other comments, Commissioner Martinez?
Yeah, just one other thing, I'm looking at the south end of the parking lot, just wondering how the trash will get picked up and that maneuverability with that being a one-way.
So the trash enclosure actually it's orientated in a sawtooth configuration, so it'll angle the actual dumpsters in the right location for that garbage truck to approach head on, and then pick the bins up, back out, and then continue on in that one-way circulation. We've already run the simulations, and the garbage truck does make it with no problem.
Okay. And then, is it mostly employees that you're anticipating parking in those southernmost spaces? I just don't want
Yes.
anybody to get trapped in.
Yes.
Before backing. And then, do you anticipate that vehicles would be stacking that far to have that much of an extended drive-through?
Beyond
Strike.
clearance bars? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, so where the pavement kind of stops and then you have the extended drive-through, kind of the pavement painting, I guess.
We wouldn't expect, I mean, at 53 car stack, I think
So
that'll
just
handle
in case,
most
kind
of the peaks that we would have.
Do you think-
Opening weekend,
Yeah,
probably, right?
There'll be a
like-
honeymoon period, of course, but once we get to a normal
And
operation.
53 is to where you have that line, right?
Yeah, the clearance
It's not
bars.
past it, right?
Right, the clearance bars will be 53.
But there was thought even from the beginning on this to build in just extra opening weekend deals when they have them. It's very popular, right? So Pete's was very, they weighed in pretty heavily on this too because they wanted some extra room on this site if something did go up.
I do like
Just to
that.
avoid that main drive aisle and any backups.
Right, you don't wanna have any backup, and if you did have a little overflow outside that double drive-through for 53, you have that on-site room, so versus it going out into like, you know, the Pete's parking lot and drives. I mean, we've seen, I know Portillo's has kind of a long line from time to time here in town, and then one of the worst is, but it's just because of the configuration, is the Starbucks on Harlem and 159th, right? Where that gets into everything, so that's, but you know, that's like probably 20 cars versus 53. So with the double drive-through, I think you hedge your bets well. I like Commissioner Merrick, I've never had Chick-fil-A. I just never have stepped foot in one. But, so I'm not sure what the driving patterns are, like the demand, I don't know. But it seems like, I guess that'd be more than enough. Any other comments, Commissioner Martinez?
Would you think it would be beneficial to put signage where that kind of extension for the drive-through starts when patrons come in? Just so that it's clear which one's the drive aisle and which one's where the drive-through starts?
Well, I think we have it already painted on the pavement where it says drive-through on the outside lane, which will get you in the queue, and then the inside lane would be your bypassing the parking lot.
Okay.
I don't know if we would need an actual physical directional sign on top.
Okay, just curious. But that's all for me.
We can bring that up with engineering too. Sometimes they like signs just because it's Chicago. It's like so, sometimes it just helps to do that, but we'll see if they have like an MUTCD sign that makes sense right there. That'll help make it very clear.
Yeah, I just have a few comments. Like I said before, for the exception of an additional structure on the same lot, I'm okay with that. Even the buffers, I know some of the trees, it's less, but I think the intent is there. And plus you have the screening on the west from the canopy structure. And I was just curious, like the canopy for the double, for the trash corral. So 8 foot 8 inches, I'm just curious why it's that high. I know that was the exception from 6 feet, but.
Yep, so next to the two bins is a storage room. That would be on the far right-hand side, and that has a roof on top, and that's what sets the actual, that top of the elevation, because you have to walk inside that room. And then in addition to that, the slab or the concrete where the bins sit, that is also raised 6 inches from the pavement elevation, so that also raises that up too as well.
Yeah, I did write down storage, so that makes sense, I'm okay with that exception. Okay. A lot of the stuff we've already talked about was the stacking. I was curious with the lighting, so I'm okay with the compromise on the illumination for the flag. And are we saying that you're gonna have less than, you guys are going with the 2-foot candle, the 2.0 foot candle, so, okay, I'm okay with that. I had some notes about the flag and other stuff, but, the last question was, based on like kind of it said there was gonna be deliveries at night, and that wouldn't interfere with like the pizza, so, and they pull in on the west side of the lot, or something like that,
Yep. So
what time at night? I was just curious, it said 1 to 2 deliveries during the night.
it would be after hours when anything that would be in the center, would be open, so it would be, most likely after midnight. It would be a key drop, which means the delivery driver has a key to the building to where they can unload the product into the building, which again is after hours. So they would stage, where on this graphic up here where it says large deliveries, that's where they would stage the semi.
Okay.
And then they would unload it through that crosswalk, one of those crosswalks, into the back of the building.
That's clear. And then I was just curious, you might not know this, but your garbage schedule, because those garbage are right by the drive-through, and you do have to come in through that to get those. So what, right, is that to empty out the storage there on the west side? So what do you have a feel for when that would happen? Would that happen during hours, the garbage pickup?
It would be definitely not non-peak hours for sure.
Okay.
Most likely in the early morning hours is typically when it would happen. We don't know the exact time,
Right.
but it would be usually in the early morning hours.
Okay, fair enough, that's fair. Just was curious when that was being talked about. With that, I have no other questions. So if you have no other comments, you gentlemen can sit down, go to the staff. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item? Okay, if not, do you want to go through the standards?
Okay.
Do you want to close the
Well,
public
actually,
hearing?
let's close it out. I'm sorry, with that said, since there's no public comment, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Gatto, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. Staff, can you present the standards at this time?
Okay, up on screen I have the standards for special use, so I'll run through them. The first regarding public safety, health, general welfare. The restaurant will provide dining options, and the site is designed to consider safety and comfort of customers, both as pedestrians and those arriving by vehicle. Secondly, it'll not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property. This property, as well as neighboring properties, are within a commercially developed business district and planned unit development. Third, it will not impede normal and orderly development in the area. The proposal is consistent with the B3 district and the PUD. Surrounding properties share similar and compatible designations. 4, regarding utilities, the area is under redevelopment, and adequate utilities, access roads, drainage facilities are being modified to support the new construction. And then the remaining ones up on screen regarding ingress, egress. This is an outlot parcel with a single point of ingress, egress to an internal access drive aisle rather than directly to Harlem right of way. The site has been designed to maximize the amount of vehicles queuing for the drive-through and to address any off-site vehicle stacking concerns. Then regarding other regulations, petitioners indicated they won't conform to those. And then lastly, regarding economic development, the proposal will contribute positively to the economic growth and development of the community, improve the functionality of the value of the land, providing 60 to 80 jobs with approximately 120 for temporary construction. And I have up on screen the standards for architecture and site design as noted in the staff report. And I have up on screen the motions for special use.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Now at this time, may I have a motion regarding the special use for substantial deviation?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the village board grant the petitioner Joseph Bavarin, HR Green Inc., on behalf of Chick-fil-A and Stephanie Drummond, how do you say Germonis, for a special use for substantial deviation to the Park Place planned unit development and exceptions to the zoning ordinance to construct a new drive-through restaurant at the outlot parcel for the property located at 16210 Harlem Avenue in accordance with the plans and documents submitted and listed herein, and adopt the findings of fact as proposed in the June 20th, 2024 staff report, subject to the following conditions. 1, the PUD exceptions from the zoning ordinance as listed in the staff report shall be included within the final PUD ordinance documents for the special use for the substantial deviation. 2, the final approval of all plans and subject to final engineering approval by the village engineer and any applicable jurisdiction approvals, including but not limited to MWRD and IEPA. The sidewalk along 163rd must be completed prior to issuance of the certificate of occupancy.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Gatto, seconded by Commissioner Stokos. Lori, could you take a roll call?
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner Gatto.
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes.
Commissioner Manny.
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick.
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez.
Yes.
Commissioner Stokos.
Yes.
Chairman Gray.
Yes. Okay, the motion is carried. This time we'll move to the second motion regarding the site plan and architectural approval.
I'll make a motion to grant the petitioner Joseph Arena, HR Green Inc., on behalf of Chick-fil-A and Stephanie Germonis, site plan and architectural approval to construct a new drive-through restaurant at the property located at 16210 Harlem Avenue in the B3 PD General Business and Commercial Park Place PUD zoning district. In accordance with the plan submitted and adopt findings of fact as proposed in the June 2024 staff report, subject to the following conditions. 1, site plan architectural approval is subject to approval of the requested special use for substantial deviation to the PUD by the village board. Number 2, site plan architectural approval is subject to the final engineering plan review and approval. And 3, the cylinder wall sconces will require a shield to ensure no uplink.
Okay, at this time, could I have a roll call?
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner Gatto.
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes.
Commissioner Manny.
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick.
Yes.
Commissioner, actually, we didn't have a second, did we, on the motion?
I'm sorry. Yeah, could I get a
I
second?
just realized that.
I'll second it.
Sorry.
Second, Commissioner Stokos.
Okay, pardon me, I was at Commissioner Merrick, I believe?
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Martinez?
Yes.
Commissioner Stokos?
Yes.
Chairman Gray?
Yes. Okay, the motion is carried. At this time, we'll go in front of the village board on July 16th, 2024 so Joe, Jason, get with staff on the details on when to attend.
Sounds great, thank
Good
you
luck.
so much.
Yes. Okay,
You guys don't have to stay.
yeah, you guys don't have to stay.
Unless you want to see, hear about Topgolf.
So,
If you're thinking about a second location, you're welcome to stay.
now we are combining items 2 and 3 on the agenda to have a combined workshop to discuss the proposed Odyssey Entertainment District Planned Unit Development as proposed by Anthony DeAngelis of Intercontinental Real Estate and Development Corporation at the southeast corner of Interstate 80 and Harlem Avenue. Also discussing removal of the subject properties from the existing I-80 World PUD. Discuss the concept plan for the Odyssey Entertainment District PUD and discuss the final plat for the Top Golf site. In addition, we will discuss the proposed Top Golf as proposed by John Morrison of Arco Murray in the proposed Odyssey Entertainment District Plan Unit Development. Staff, please present your.
Can I get a second, Commissioner Gray? Out of transparency, I would have to recuse myself since I'm employed by our group, who will be the AOR for Topgolf.
Okay.
So
Okay, fair
I
enough.
will not be commenting.
So I was gonna say, we usually recommend stepping down from the dais even,
Yeah.
potentially during that item.
Sure.
Just so that way there's not any conflict.
Thank you for your transparency, Commissioner Manning. With that said, once you get to see staff, you can start with your presentation.
Sure. And again, thanks for tying this into one. So real quickly, there's a couple things happening here. There's a new PUD being created. We're kind of amending an old one. I'll get into the history of that. For a much larger region, and then Topgolf is going to be the first developer within the new PUD. So technically, they just really have to do site plan and architecture, but that's going to be combined with the PUD. So I figure it might just be easier. Let's just turn this into one item, and probably when it comes for public hearing, it will also be one item. But there are two different petitioners. So on our end, writing ordinances and everything, we'll get it squared away. But in terms of, since the workshop is really just a big discussion, I figure we'll just kind of tie this all together. So I'll do we'll do a quick overview. I'll do that, and then I'll pass it off to Michael to go over Topgolf. We'll try and keep it quick because I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions. There are a lot of details that kind of dig deep in both our staff reports. So overall, the area we're talking about is the southeast corner of I-80 and Harlem Avenue. The area is bound by Harlem Avenue to the west, Oak Park Avenue to the east, and I-80 to the north. Similar other uses in the area on the south part of town. To the west is Brookside Marketplace. To the east is Credit Union One Amphitheater. And then there are two boundaries on the map that are up here. The dashed yellow line is an existing PUD called I-80 World. And the blue line is what is going to be the proposed new Odyssey Entertainment PUD. So a little background and history of this area, and also some of the zoning. So and actually this map's probably a little bit better. The areas to the south of Prosperity Drive and south of 191st Street, that was all actually annexed into the village in 1969. It's zone B3. Nothing clearly has ever developed there more than just the vacant land, the flea market. And then the area in yellow, the I-80 World, was actually annexed in 1996 with a subsequent PUD and annexation agreement approved upon in 1997. The original annexation agreement was for the CarMax, and then to the west of it was supposed to be a Cinemark Theater. And one got built, one did not, over the past 30 years. So I-80 World has really just been CarMax for 30 years. There's really been no other development on site. There's actually, Prosperity Drive has been improved. 191st comes through now. The whole layout's a little bit different. So in general, that's why you get some of these weird zonings. We have the CarMax was rezoned B5 PUD. That other area was B3 PUD, but it was very specifically for the Cinemark within the annexation agreement. There's basically kind of what we're doing here is this theater is going to be here and it's going to have these things and all that. So really anything that came to develop there in I-80 World would have to come through you guys and be amended and all that. And then all the land there is the B3. Obviously, there's more commercial zoning. There's some residential to the southeast, but that's really the golf course and Odyssey Fun World. And then some other vacant properties directly adjacent. So what we're actually trying to accomplish here is create a new entertainment district. It's going to be anchored by the Topgolf facility. Oh, that's a bummer. So there's 4 requests we're actually going for. So the first 3 requests are by Anthony DeAngelis with ICRED. It's going to be a substantial deviation to the I-80 World PUD that's going to remove the Topgolf parcels, and then I-80 will still just be CarMax as it was originally intended. The special use for planned unit development is going to create the new Odyssey Entertainment District, and then there's going to be a final plat for Topgolf and its detention facilities. And then finally, there's going to be site plan architecture review for Topgolf. So I kind of already overwent this. Highlighted in blue is the area that's going to be removed, so we can add it in. The Topgolf is kind of in the top portion. The other stuff is just extra. When you're creating a PUD, and we kind of went over this earlier about things matching or things kind of having a unified theme, that's what's supposed to happen in a PUD. You want to have a master plan. You want things to all work together. If we want to create a real unique space in Tinley Park that's going to be an entertainment district for a lot of different uses, we want them to share certain elements. We want them to be able to get to each other, cross access, walkable, things like that, maybe even shared parking, centralized parking. There's a lot of places, even just in this region. Rosemont is the one that comes to mind that has, like, you go to Rosemont, you park, and then you just walk to all those different businesses, right? That's the goal for a PUD. The I-80 World PUD was a CarMax and a movie theater. So we're trying to just start fresh, start new, let CarMax stay in I-80 World where it had all its regulations in one place. Since this is going to have so many, instead of just adding on to I-80 World, we're going to take an opportunity to start fresh.
Jason, if I may, it is a workshop, so I just wanted.
Yeah.
I noticed, that on the southeast portion of Prosperity Drive, and I know they have like sometimes corn mazes, and they have the Wizard of Oz bench out there. How come? And I'm sure it's just ownership and how it's parceled, but it's that area that's being removed to be added is kind of like it doesn't fit. You're still going to have that flea market there, I'm assuming, or what's?
No, so the new this is actually going to be
I'm sorry. So that's okay.
This will be the brand new. So
Okay.
we're taking those out because we can't create two PUDs on top of each other.
Okay.
So this will actually be the nice, clean version of the Odyssey Entertainment PUD, because they have larger plans to create, and I don't know if you can see it quite as well on the. And that's kind of their overall subdivision plan. Lots 6, 7, 8, and 9 are all the way up top. That's the really funky shaped one is Topgolf, and those are their detention ponds. But overall, this is the overall site plan and the area they want to go through. So again, they want to establish like a cohesively planned entertainment district in this area. It's a conceptual plan that they have here. One, to give you understanding what they're looking to do, they've already undertaken some preliminary engineering. We'll get into some of the hardships in a little bit about why they need to do that. But overall, there's 25 total lots. They're looking at 19 developable lots, 6 that are going to be used for stormwater detention. And Topgolf is their first developer ready to establish the entire district. So they're kind of the anchor that is going to hopefully bring others along, and then property owner can take this as to whoever and say, I have 3 acres here, I have 4 acres here. How do you want to be aligned? Do you want to be Topgolf? Do you want to be near something else? So while some of these may be combined or even divided to make smaller for different users, since we don't have specific users, we will be all working together to go out and try and get the best users for these sites. So this is conceptual in nature, but overall what they're trying to do. So going over some stuff that's going to be in the PUD, staff has created kind of a wish list of what we want this place to kind of be. And then we've worked with the petitioner to kind of go back and forth on some things that they'd like to see as well. And there's 6 basic things we went over: is master planning, evaluating the overlay districts, going over land uses, building materials, parking and access, and signage. So overall, and yes, perfect. So master planning. Here's the biggest concern on site is the floodplain. So the blue is 100-year floodplain. The orange is 200-year floodplain, 500-year floodplain. Either way, there's a lot of engineering that needs to be done south of Prosperity Drive. Nothing can really be developed there. But this northern portion, which is kind of highlighted and pointed to, that Topgolf there, that's out of the floodplain. That can be developed, and it's an excellent opportunity to give the property owners the resources to re-engineer and develop the land. So in terms of how this is going to work, since they have a conceptual plan but they don't have any users yet, we're expecting that we let Topgolf go here, start generating revenue, business, and interest, and then the next development, when they come in, they'll have to do a special use to the PUD, and we're going to require the owner of the PUD to start doing master plans for transportation, signage, utilities. I mean, basically anything that goes into development, we're going to want to see the outlook and layout for everything. We've discussed multi-use paths. We've discussed centralized parking, the potential for a parking deck, some way that may be able to relieve traffic situations on Saturdays in the summer has been discussed. So while Topgolf's ready to go now and we want to get this established, those are going to kind of be just requirements within the PUD that anything other than Lot 6 that gets developed, you have to come in and get a master plan. Discussions at the end of last week with the petitioner is there's actually this Lot 5, which I've highlighted in purple in the circle, that they've kind of re-engineered. That is actually out of the floodplain as well and developable. So one of the open items, and we can either talk about, I'll kind of try and get through a little bit faster here. We can talk about open items at the end of the presentation, and I can always circle back to this, but it is possible we could let them also develop Lot 5, get an extra user there before requiring the master plans. It's not a large site. I think it's only 3 or 4 acres, so it would just be a single user. So that is something we should discuss. Moving on, it's in 2 different overlay districts in our zoning ordinance, in the Rich Township Entertainment and Tourism Overlay District, and it's in the Urban Design Overlay District. We're proposing, number 1, to just, as part of the PUD, exempt them from the overlay district. The overlay district was really for more of like a new urbanism design of buildings up front on the street, and kind of having parking in the rear and all that. Since this is going to be such a unique designed place, we want to give the developers that come here more flexibility in how they can develop the site. We still want some of the concepts in the UDO that we kind of touch on: cross access, trying to limit the number of curb cuts, increase walkability. But if we put Topgolf up front, the parking lot, it could be very confusing. If we get something else that's also unique, those things tend to plan themselves around each other. The Rich Township Entertainment District is more of an overlay district that regulates land use and some signage requirements. So we are going to keep that overlay district, but we are going to modify the land use a little. The land use in the zoning ordinance has a kind of laundry list of basically commercial uses. And we've kind of refined that down to be more entertainment uses, so we're kind of getting rid of some services and other things. Because like we said, we want this to be restaurants, bars, other entertainment uses and things like that. So kind of falling right into this, it's in your packet, it's up on top 2. I'm not going to go over everything we've kind of moved around, but basically we took some uses that were either special uses or prohibited and moved them into permitted or special uses in this district. And we've removed things like banks, offices, currency exchanges, automobile repair, stuff that, while okay in certain commercial areas, we want this to be more of a tourism. You're coming here to have a good time. You're coming here on a Friday night to hang out with your friends. You're not coming here to drop your car off at the body shop. So open item number 2 is if you guys have reviewed the list or things like that. And again, we'll have a public hearing next month. It'll give you some time to think if there's anything we've missed here that could be added or should be removed. Parking access, we've kind of gone over. As we talked about Chick-fil-A, we're talking about exempting all the developments within here from the parking standards. It's going to be up to Plan Commission. They're going to have to provide a parking study for each of their individual sites. They're going to have to provide cross-access easements, even if they're not using them, just in case future developments change or access becomes hard or we get traffic issues. It always gives us a way to alleviate those problems in the future. We've specified drive aisles. It's very fluid in our parking standards about where drive aisles are depending on the angle and all this. We're going to kind of just mark down, these are the exact numbers, do the math, design your lot. As open item number 3, and this is just an open discussion, we've been talking about centralized parking, about possibly, in a master plan down the road, designating one of those lots just for parking, and then over time, maybe a parking deck gets added after a surface lot. And then maybe even further in the future, it has its own ride share component where people can stop using ride share at the music venue. Maybe you just designate it there, you have a shuttle. These are big long-term plans, and like we said, they don't have these hammered out yet, and Topgolf is here and now, but these are all things we'd like to discuss. Building materials, and we kind of mentioned this a little bit with Chick-fil-A, but also obviously Topgolf, national big brands that have these unique uses, kind of have their own concepts and their own, materials that they like using to set their brand apart. We're still encouraging masonry, but we're going to modify it a little bit. The building's over 20,000 square feet, so your larger buildings such as Topgolf, we are proposing to exempt. Buildings under 20,000 square feet have to meet our standards, which is is based off a ratio of how big your building is. If it's small and under 3,000, the whole building has to be brick. If it would be between 3 and 20, 75% would have to be brick. So that would be really more for like restaurants coming in, that we would still want to maintain that high standard for when restaurants come in. We don't want them just coming in and using EIFS or cheaper products. But we realize some of these larger venues might just be not feasible.
Jason, I got a quick question, because I know the intent is to be like an entertainment district. So what would like Whirly Ball, chicken and pickle, and that, what are those categories?
Those would be, indoor or outdoor recreation use.
Okay. And I'm only saying that because I don't explicitly see it on.
So it's already permitted in the Rich Township overlay. I didn't want to put a 40 use list on the screen for you.
Entertainment, I see banks, I see like taverns.
Yeah.
But like we have a lot of that even in downtown Tinley.
So there's
a good opportunity with,
Yeah, those are outright permitted in the Rich Township anyway. So we're just leaving them as is. The table from before was just taking some of that stuff out that's permitted in Rich Township that we really don't want in this specific area. And then just an open item on that question. Do we feel the intent behind what staff and the petitioner are proposing are adequate, or if there should be changes? That's an open item. Finally, the final plat. This one's pretty simple. We usually don't do these at workshops, but here's the final plat for Topgolf. Topgolf will have its own lot, and then the other retention ponds. There will be covenants for the entire PUD entertainment district to maintain these lots. When new developers comes in, sharing how they're going to be maintained. The petitioner's drafting those up now. Hopefully they'll have a draft ready for public hearing in July. So we should be able to get a first look at those. But overall, we don't love to see separate lots for retention ponds, but if there's covenants in place, and if not, we can always put a dormant SSA to make sure they're taken care of. Final plat will always be covered by engineering. Question, Gary?
No.
Oh, okay. And now it's Michael's turn to talk about Topgolf specifically.
Okay. So one of the lots in the Odyssey Entertainment District, this 7,000 Pressberry Drive, is where Topgolf is going to be. It's almost 13 acres with significant frontage on the I-80 Harlem interchange. Jason mentioned it's currently in the I-80 World PUD, and we're pulling it out of that to be part of the Odyssey Entertainment PUD. And I think it's worth noting that the Topgolf site would be a 15-minute walk to the amphitheater. So it's totally reasonable to expect people to do that once we have the infrastructure in place. So we're here for site plan architectural approval, or the discussion of site plan architectural approval for Topgolf. Topgolf is unique, so they're building a Topgolf. It's a driving range with restaurants and bars. It's going to be 3 levels of driving range with climate-controlled platforms where players aim at targets. For those of us who don't know much about Topgolf, you aim at targets to earn points, and there's other games, and then some people just use it as a driving range as well. I mentioned there's going to be multiple restaurants and bars. There'll be an event space, and there's other types of games that you can play while you're at Topgolf. Okay, so here is the site plan. I annotated it a bit so you can see what's going on a little better. The large green field is going to be the outfield for Topgolf. That's where you're, hitting the balls, and the circles in the center are the targets. You can earn points if you choose to play that way. The walkways are shown in red. That connects the building and parking areas to the front door of the building. And then I've got those 3 stormwater ponds in blue with a arrow highlighting the building entrance. So the Topgolf folks will build a sidewalk on their frontage on Prosperity Drive. Jason mentioned that the PUD will have more of a plan for transportation as that goes forward. Also worth noting that the Oak Park Metro is 2 miles to the north, and the petitioners stated that they will add bicycle parking to the plans. Currently not shown on this version, but they'll have that ready for the actual public hearing. The petitioner states through their traffic report and through other locations in the country that the parking provided is adequate. Additionally, what do I have? There's going to be 2 curb cuts for driveways. They're in a logical place. I don't think we have any site triangle problems, and it keeps it kind of away from the curve just at the beginning, so vehicle movements will be safe. For the architecture of the building, the petitioner is proposing a 3-story, 50-foot tall building, mostly clad in ephes and metal panels with curtain walls as well. It's a very modern design, mostly gray with a blue accent at the entryway. It's Topgolf standard design, so this is kind of what they build throughout the country, similarly to what we were talking about with Chick-fil-A. And all the rooftop mechanicals will be screened, and I think we have the material board. If you already passed it? Okay, yeah. So the material board's going around, shows you the different color palette, the ephes that they're proposing, the metal panels, things like that. This top image here is what the front facade will look like. Where that shield is in the center under the word Topgolf is kind of angled, so that's where the entrance is at. The center image is the rear elevation of the building, so that shows you the 3 levels of driving range platform. And I think I mentioned those are going to be climate controlled, so you can use them year round. It's not like you're freezing in the winter. Here are the other 2 elevations. On the top left is the left elevation, top right is the right elevation, and then at the bottom here we have the left elevation showing the scale of the driving range net, which goes all the way up to 190 feet, and it is that large, that tall to minimize the risk of any errant balls going into the right of way, or I guess hitting cars or something. Apparently that's inappropriate height. They don't really have a problem with errant balls going anywhere, so that's good. I have the landscaping plan up here now. the site is very constrained, and the nature of the development makes it challenging to provide all the landscaping required by the landscape ordinance. So what they've done to do the best they can is they have landscaping proposed primarily on the front facade of the building, so where patrons will be entering will be landscaped. They're proposing to have vegetated ponds, so there'll be native plantings, wetland plantings in the stormwater areas, which is not something that we require, but they're doing that to kind of beef up the landscaping. They are proposing several parking islands that all have trees and shrubs. There's some perimeter landscaping, and we have a pretty fair number of canopy trees based on, how constrained the site is as well. And they're doing a real nice landscaping design around the sign base as well, which we do require. As for lighting, I expect that that might be a concern of the commission. So the way that the lighting works is there's no lights on the poles on the driving range. The driving range is lit from the building with down lighting to light up the field. There's 2 displays at the end of the field that are just involved with the games that you're playing. I mentioned that those circles there light up in the evening, and those are targets depending on what game you're playing. And then the parking lot has just standard parking lot down lighting on poles. They are completely compliant with the glare standards of the zoning ordinance, so I think they're even at 0-foot candles at the property line. So they've done a good job with their lighting design to make sure that you don't have the whole thing glowing. There should be really no impact to traffic on I-80 or the Harlem ramp getting onto 80 based on how they've configured the site and how they have the lighting designed. For signage, they're proposing 5 signs overall. 4 of those signs are compliant with the signage standards in the zoning ordinance. The one that is not is the shield that's going to be adjacent to the entrance. That's the Topgolf logo. It is oversized, and so that would ordinarily be an exception to the PUD, but since we're baking this project into the PUD, it really isn't an exception. They have this Topgolf Top Tracer sign at the entrance of the building, and then the top left is their monument sign that'll be on Pressberry Drive. And then I have just the open items that Jason mentioned earlier for your discussion.
Okay. Well, with that said, does John with Topgolf want to,
Sure.
say anything? It's a workshop, so I don't have to say.
Yeah, of course. I'm John Morrison of Arco Murray here representing Topgolf, and we are very excited to have this initial conversation with you guys. I think Michael and Jason knocked it out of the park with their reports, so we just want to open up the door for any questions you might have.
Okay, sounds good. We will begin with Commissioner Gaskell.
I have no questions at this time.
Commissioner Smathers.
No questions?
Commissioner Martinez.
I guess what drives the signage on this building? Is that the typical number of signage that you propose on all of them?
Typical branding, yep.
Okay, and even that powered by signage?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's my only question right now.
Okay. Commissioner Hamilton.
No questions.
Commissioner Merrick.
I got a couple. So I'm interested in a couple things. One of them is about the biking and stuff, right? We know that the actual bike lane on Oak Park ends at 183rd. And I used to live in those townhomes back along that area. It's not runnable, it's not bikeable from 183rd over to this location, right? I mean, it could be, right? But it's not safe bikeable, in my opinion. There's not that much traffic on it right now. So but. if we
It
have
is
this-
signed at 50 miles an hour, so.
Yeah, right, so it's not a really safe thing, and the area that would need to be connected to make this bikeable isn't their property, right? And so they probably aren't gonna build the village bike path to help people get from 183rd. So I'm interested in that piece. I'm also, maybe, this is, you can tell me this is out of bounds, but I'm interested in other places that Topgolf has served as an anchor, right? And it strikes me that you see Topgolfs right along expressways around the US, and that's a standard sort of model, kind of like Cracker Barrel is a place that people eat when they're driving on the expressway. This is a place that people drive to on the expressway. I'd love to see some examples of how Topgolf has served as an anchor for broader development in other areas, so that we don't end up approving something that ends up being like out of place, standalone out there. I love the broad concept of it, but I'm really interested in how do we connect that in for people who aren't in cars. But then also, will this work to anchor this broader site in place to do the things you're thinking of? So those are the, I don't think you, but maybe you can answer the thing about serving as an anchor, right? Or some other examples.
Well, yeah, I think actually those examples that were up on the board earlier were some prime examples of some of our similar tenants that we would have around there. And knowing that it is an entertainment district, we would kind of expect that to fall suit with similar uses out there. As far as the overall bicycle infrastructure, I can't speak to that outside.
That would be more for.
If you could provide us examples, like, you can say this is a normal thing that it would attract, but I'd love to see examples of where that's happened, right? As opposed to just thinking theoretically. Maybe that's not your job, maybe that's the planning staff's job of how that.
So both of those things, one, and I'm sure they could provide, and also, Mr. DeAngelis, I definitely know the Naperville one, Whirly Ball opened up next door. I know there's a couple other things that opened up nearby, maybe examples from Schaumburg, but I'm sure we could grab some of those examples for you.
Yeah,
Absolutely, I think that would be great to add to the public hearing. The multi-use path.
There might even be more comparable ones to like this setup, or like, or Schaumburg and Naperville are fine, right? They're close by, but there might be similar setups more to this. Maybe there's a music theater near one. I know there's one, at least one, where there's an event venue that was pretty big that was near it, because we were talking with them about parking and how they might need to manage their parking a little bit different on their site. So we could look for those other comparable ones, even if it's in
Tennessee,
Georgia, or something.
And they do exist in different contexts. So there's one in St. Petersburg, Florida, that is adjacent to a major office park, and so it's a big draw for employees after work. There's one in Scottsdale, Arizona, that's adjacent to the MLB and NFL stadiums, and so that one's kind of a major entertainment district with a lot of other users nearby. I think Topgolf in that example came after the stadiums, but this is kind of the model that they have generally throughout the country. Is the entertainment users do follow them. And then as far as the transportation, getting across Oak Park from that 183rd trail, Public Works is planning a multi-use path on the west side of the Oak Park Avenue Bridge. And so that should be nice and wide to accommodate two-way bicycle traffic and pedestrians. So eventually you'll be able to very safely bike from downtown Tinley across the bridge to the amphitheater, to Topgolf, to the other users in the PUD. The ball is rolling on all of that and getting people safely to the area. So it'll be great when that's all in place.
So I wish I could give you an exact date on that. It
Yeah.
involves IDOT and Cook County. So, but it'll be very similar to what's happening on 80th Avenue now, where they need to widen it, they rebuild it, they do the bridges. So they're kind of doing that throughout I-80 because it heavily involves Cook County and IDOT. I wish I could tell you it's going to happen next year, or it'll happen right before this. The good news is the plans, the designs, a lot of that is pretty far along, which is good news when you're talking about sometimes it's just where do the numbers line up, how do the planning with everything else IDOT's doing on I-80 works out. But we're going to at least have it be going towards the amphitheater, towards this entertainment zone. And if there's any other gaps that exist in there, then I think that becomes a high priority as we talk about as a village. Gaps, because even people walking to the amphitheater is a big concern. Take this project away.
Yeah.
There's been a few fatalities over there
Yeah.
over the years and stuff that we wanna help avoid. I know it from personally, I walked there when I was a kid all the time.
And that's what I think, like, you're gonna have from those houses, if there's a Top Golf and kids wanna go, they don't have a car, they're gonna walk. I did see about the west side, that's the west side. How do you get over from that complex to the amphitheater across 5 lanes of Oak Park Avenue? So
That is part of the plan for the trail, is that it would be on the west side of Oak Park. There would be a crossing across Oak Park of that trail, and then the trail would continue south to Volmer.
but it won't be an elevated crossing,
No.
right?
And,
That great.
So, cause like in the staff report, it said, if you're at 40 miles and over, like, if you're hit, 85% are fatalities. So unless they're gonna put like some sort of, guardrail or barrier or something, we're maybe designing something that it could be potentially unsafe. There's no, and I know, cause I drive down there all the time, but there is no stoplight, that's for sure. And then, that, again, that's another jurisdiction, I'm sure, Cook County or IDOT or something, but with that said, just compound that on a summer day when you do have like a mega star at the concert. Taylor Swift comes in town, what's that gonna look like on a Saturday or something, right?
Yeah,
I mean, they'll drum up some
that
business for you
was
guys.
my question, like, on any given Friday or Saturday night, how many people attend Topgolf? Like, what's the average?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So when we did our traffic study, we pulled a point, which was a summer date, that's like a Friday or Saturday concert venue at their peak hours, so that we were able to put that in our traffic report and compare to our site. As far as our seating goes, we have 1,300 seats, so to give you an idea of what the typical occupancy is.
And I was just curious, cause there wasn't a number in the staff report, it just said the parking would be adequate. So from the other similarly sized Topgolfs, typically what is like, your percentage capacity of the parking, like is this?
They get filled up, and part of having so many parking stalls is so you're not queuing out in the public right of way. So we want people to be able to navigate our site and not be searching for a spot forever. So we want to have ample spacing there.
And does this compare pretty favorably? How many spots are on that plan?
There's 476, and it's comparable to Schaumburg or Naperville, same size venue, 102 bays.
Yeah, I've golfed at one of those for a bachelor party. The parking was packed, but it was a fun time. I mean, I think it's a nice concept, a nice. I don't know how, without doing a master plan, how that, because I know even the Brookside Marketplace had a different anchor store that pulled out, like, so, not saying that, but like, I would think this is something unique. I think this is something that would draw people. We just want to make sure that it's like accessible, the roadways will, I know it said the capacity is fine, but like some of those summer concerts, I don't know.
So
we did talk to, or Topgolf did talk to the Tinley Park Police Department about traffic flow, and my understanding from that meeting was that there wasn't really major concerns on traffic management. The other thing is Topgolf, at least for the driving range bays, you book reservations, and so there is a steady flow throughout the day of people cycling. It's not as though everybody starts at 6 and they're all there and it's totally slammed. It moves throughout the day.
I'm just thinking forward, like you got 19 lots that have 19 different businesses or whatnot. There might be a strip mall on a Saturday. And I know, like, I went to the Janet Jackson concert last year and they said, they gave you like a telephone message, or an email, something, get there early. So we got there way early, still had like the fast pass entry, and then still got in probably 35 minutes after the doors opened, not the concert. And there were some people that came kind of a normal time to get in and came in like during her second part of her show. So there was a lot of people complaining about that. So it's not just Top Golf you'll be competing with, it'll be competing with,
Yeah.
unless there's other avenues for them to get in and get out of that.
So what's kind of nice about this and kind of what we're trying to accomplish here is one, like, just by putting in or talking about a multi-use path, even though we're not ready for it yet, like, we can start talking about how we're gonna get multiple ways to access these sites. We can start with Top Golf. We know Saturdays down that way are crazy in the summer for concerts and things like that. If Top Golf is built and open, we can evaluate the different problems going on. And then when the next developer comes in and it's time to master plan it, we now have set data to say, okay, we need to do X, Y, and Z to help alleviate some of these issues. This is kind of like what we're talking about centralized parking. And if you have wider walkways, not just a sidewalk, but a multi-use path, it doesn't have to be for a bicycle, but you could offer more traffic flow for pedestrians. You can, and then even crossing Oak Park Ave on those special nights, maybe you have traffic guards. Maybe it's going to give us an eye-opening opportunity. The traffic report already states, like, just for this as alone is set. They've compared to their other the amount of parking. They were also in that report comparing to a variety of their other places. And that's why this fits in. They say, yes, the parking lot gets full, but typically you don't have to drive along too much to find one or two spaces because there is that steady flow of every half hour, people are coming and going on their thing. So I think it's a great opportunity, and it's something we wanted baked into the PUD to require master transportation planning after this site, because we can kind of determine, and maybe the bridge gets built before that happens, and then we're like, oh, this is already here. Now we know where it goes.
Like you mentioned this question, and John, you're standing up there because they put two things together. So there's a couple cross compatible things here, but like the master plan, like you put the chicken before the cart before the horse or whatever, and if you build it, they'll come. But the infrastructure, just making even even when we did approve the gas station and the Starbucks, at least they had some sort of connectivity like built in. So you have to have some forward thinking on that, and because it said here that there was no bus routes, there's nothing, and I understand there's nothing there to go to the flea market or whatever, but I would think that at a minimum you'd want to have some sort of public transportation, because I do think like the vision of this entertainment district is a great concept. I think it's something that would really boost the community, but you do want to get the right supporting tenants in, and then also have the right layout, public transportation safe. I just think having the amphitheater across 5 lanes, even if you have crossing guards on certain days, I don't know how this would happen, but I think maybe a land bridge would probably be best to go over something like that. I know at Iowa State and Ames, they used to not have one across all this traffic. People would walk, it's dangerous. They finally put one in. I know that's a lot of money. This is a smaller thing, and you'd have to make it ADA accessible and stuff, but like, I just think if you're gonna have something as cool as this, and next to the theater, and then even the Odyssey Fun World that's kind of down the street, it kind of works together as an entertainment district. But like, I just think, you would have to have some of this planning in place. Does anybody else feel like spearheading one thing with another 5 or 6 acre lot for another tenant is a good start? Or do you think, he who hesitates is sometimes saved? I'm just asking.
Well, this land's been there for 30 years and nobody's gone in there.
Yeah.
Now we have somebody that wants to go in there, so why should we not let them go in there?
Well, I'm not saying not let them go in there. I'm just saying is have some sort of, I know we have a preliminary master plan. There's a lot of unknowns here. And sometimes if you run with the ball just fast and in a direction, you might later on go, oh, I wish I did this. I wish I hesitated just to think. I'm just asking. I'm not saying, I think this would be great. So, but some of the other things where part of the site is in a floodplain, is that why 6 of the things are gonna be detention areas to make use for compensatory storage? I mean, it was zone AE.
No, the retention ponds that are proposed are just for Topgolf and possibly lot 5.
Yeah.
That other lot, yeah. So those 3 would handle that, and then you would actually see I can get back to it.
Yeah, see, I mean, you got all that.
Yeah, so you see the big lots along Oak Park Avenue and at the bottom corner? Those would be storage for the rest of the lots. And then they actually have plans for compensatory storage off-site, and it's actually not, it's in lots down the waterway that's actually not, it's by Scanell,
Okay.
down by Volmer Road, actually. That's their plan. I can't speak too much on the engineering of that, but that's the
Right,
overall
'cause it's usually
plan
more
that they're
expensive
working
to
on.
build in a floodplain area.
Correct.
Wetland, you gotta get a 404B permit from the Army Corps of Engineers, so that might take some potential tenants out of the equation. So
Sure.
like, when I saw that, I'm like, oh, to Commissioner Stockle's point, no wonder it's been vacant for all this time, right?
Yeah.
Half of it is in floodplain.
Mhm.
You know, I like the fact that they're developing in non-floodplain areas, and they probably, like that as well. But, I mean, I don't know what type of additional costs that would incur. So even though I think this is really great, and it'd be nice to have something fun like that, and unique, I just think like, do we know that this rest is possible? You know, I
Yeah,
don't want to build a utopia.
And maybe
that's
another
like-
question is, does it need to be possible, right? So Topgolf's willing to move in without the other ones there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And you
true.
think it'd be economically viable without other folks around?
Correct, yeah, so once Topgolf comes in, they become the anchor, then you get people interested, they are suddenly wanting to invest some capital into improving the infrastructure so that they can get their site to work there. So we think, you know, based off the studies that we've done, Topgolf's a perfect foot in the door to get that kick started. We're not saying that it's perfect out there, but like there's certainly gonna be lots of improvements as part of the master development, but I think really, you know, once we come in, then the other people will be interested, you'll see more traffic studies come in until you eventually tip the scale and see, okay, now we need some more infrastructure improvements to compensate for that, but at least getting the ball rolling is gonna keep this site from being vacant for so long.
And from a technical perspective, it's certainly possible, and Anthony and his team have gone pretty far down the line to understand how they can accomplish that. There's always the financial side of it, right? It's gotta work out at a financial level of what they sell the lots for, who comes in there and builds it. But they have a plan in place that has them develop that, which is what we wanna see. But that is why this is broken out into two. It takes a long time to do floodplain and comp storage and offsite storage. Not that it can't happen, and I was talking to Anthony, I'm like, I'm gonna be throwing people at you, so that way it's pushing them to move that as quick as they can, cause I think we'll get a lot of interest in this site that will allow them to then spend that money and make those contributions, make those design, progressions that would allow them to develop that area. But yes, it's entirely possible to do that, but that's a reason kind of why Topgolf's broken off by itself, because they're here, they're ready to build, and we wanna see that move forward. While we're working through kind of the rest of the site, but if that does help alleviate some of the initial, we're not gonna have 10 things open at one time, like Topgolf's gonna come in, they're gonna get established probably before. There's one more site, right, that could have something on it, everything else is gonna take a little bit more time before we get there.
Well, and the only reason I brought it up, it was part of the open items for the workshop. Do we put the cart before the horse? I agree with Commissioner Merrick on this, like, I think, I mean, if there's just a Topgolf there, that's a reason, you'll get people. You're right off the expressway, you'll get people. I'm not really worried about that, that's not really a concern per se. It was just more so, in fact, thinking holistically and looking down the road for the infrastructure, whether it's safe, you know, walkable areas, and then will people move in and fill in that area? But if it is just standalone and nothing ever happens, because I don't know, for geotech engineering, there'll be sites where if it's in floodplain, they're not building there. And then there's some that it is in floodplain and wetlands, and they'll pay the money, they'll submit and it takes longer time for a 4D permit for wetlands or whatever, and get something built. We've seen clients do that, but sometimes it's a deal breaker for some people too, so, you know,
It's a bigger
I brought
question.
that up because that was in the open items.
It's a bigger question overall too, is actually just for Tinley Park, like most of the vacant sites we have left have floodplain, they have some, this is the reason why they're left. They had those, it does take time, it does take money to get through those hurdles. because we're largely getting built out and we have less and less sites out here, and we're still a great community to visit, to stop in on your way on I-80 and live in, those sites are becoming more valuable actually. So it's allowing those, even this site has remained vacant because it's got its own hurdles. The gas and wash site that's under construction, massive hurdles there. So we're getting to a point that overcoming those, now that we don't just have empty farm fields everywhere that are ready to go, people are investing in the ones that have a little bit more work to do on them before we get there.
I totally agree with that, like, I mean, I
So
know.
it's going in a good direction.
I pass by that flea market all the time.
It's such an eyesore.
It's such a, I saw that was the first thing, like, they said prohibited flea markets. So I get it, and I think it would be a really good boon. I mean, I really think, like, a standalone, it will work.
Well, one thing that I wanted to add is that, like, you know, when we put in this Topgolf, the infrastructure is coming in piece by piece. So, you know, we agreed to install the public sidewalk along the right of way there. That's the first piece of the puzzle. We're putting in sanitary connection that crosses Prosperity Drive. Now you all of a sudden have access to sanitary on that side of the road. We're putting water main along our western property line. All of a sudden there's a potential connection for the next developer. So maybe all the infrastructure doesn't come at once, but at least you can kind of build it out piece by piece. So it's not like getting completely inundated by a development all at once. You can kind of build out the pieces, and I think Anthony's team did a great job of building out and really maxing out the feasibility for that area with the floodplains. It's just something that comes with time. You get more capital investments, these tenants come, and suddenly you have the ability to afford to build out the rest of those sites. So it's not gonna happen all at once, but I think, you know, with proper phasing, you can really make this economically feasible.
With police and traffic on the amphitheaters too, I'll say that's also gonna be, so we've already had some discussions with Topgolf, and obviously it's gonna be dependent once they have an operator there, we'll have somebody to actually, once it gets a little closer, we can meet with them. But there's gonna be obvious need to coordinate on the schedules, right? So if we have, the Janet Jackson one was a rarity in that it was the first concert of the year too, and brand new 16-year-old kids directing traffic caused a problem too. We couldn't do anything on the streets, like our police department did a good job coordinating, but when there was issues on the site. Our commander that does the amphitheater is aware of this, was at all the meetings. He seems to feel pretty confident they can coordinate this. It's gonna take some changes. They do it with CarMax now. They make sure that there's people stationed by the Target shopping center and everything kind of works. The Prosperity connection was huge, I think, for the amphitheater because that's a nice little relief valve of being able to get people over to Harlem the right way. Rather than having, they used to have everybody go down like 183rd Street and stuff and loop back around. So there's bigger plans out there, and they're in coordination with our engineering department too to say, you know, not just the bike paths and everything, but the roadways. Are there extra needs? Is there a need for an extra third lane in there so emergency vehicles can get by? So there can be an extra turn lane. They're looking at all of that as they're redesigning the road. So there's been a need for it for a long time, and we're getting really close to it happening. So I don't have final designs. I'd love to show it to you, but all of this, I think, will get interconnected pretty well. We're dealing with, obviously, going back to that not having been planned from the beginning. It would have been nice, but I think we're chipping away there at making it better. And then not having, again, this whole area development one time and throwing all that at once. I think we'll have Topgolf come in, everyone feels confident that's gonna work, and then from there, you know, if we do have somebody develop on that other lot, we'll see what their traffic looks like, and I think we'll be able to, over time, hopefully, as we make those improvements, everything will kind of work and gel together. And then that's kind of why we have some of that master planning in place too, even for parking. Is Topgolf's kind of almost over-parked this site a little bit, so they can make sure there is available spots, nobody's driving around looking for one. We don't really want to even see that happen on every single site out here, right? You don't want to have everybody throwing an extra 50 parking spots just to have some extras. So that's why we've specifically even called out having shared parking arrangements, a shared parking deck, something like that. I think would work really well out here, especially once you have those those transportation connections.
Yeah, no, and I agree, I mean, like, it's a fair point that you'll bring some infrastructure, and you guys are popular, and you do pack them in, and, I mean, there's appointments, so, you know, that helps alleviate it, as it was mentioned. Is there any other comments from the commissioners?
I have a quick question, just since we're talking about the parking decks. Would that be privately owned?
It's to be determined, right, that's why we need it to kind of look a little more, it depends who comes out here, it depends how it kind of ends up being planning. Could it be privately owned by the association? Yes. Could it be public? Could it be built private and owned public? All those are possible options. But the exact answer to that will be TBD, depending on who comes and how it operates.
Yeah, I guess it really depends, and we're just discussing it as a idealistic planning opportunity for future growth, right? So it's one of those things like we can't bake it into the PUD, but let's say this happens and then all of a sudden we have 8 users that want to come. It's going to open our eyes to say, oh, we can make a decision now on how we want to do this. Should the village buy a lot and build a structure? Should the developer do that, and we'll put that in. So it'll be kind of based on what happens after this.
Yeah, I'm just concerned, I guess I will save my concerns for in the future, but at least I can voice it now. I'm just concerned on that, when that point does tip and we realize that we do need a parking structure like that, I just don't want that specific applicant at that time to feel all of that burden.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why it's kind of getting into the master planning side of it, or like we need to see if it's the association. You don't want to have like a restaurant comes in and you're like, oh, now we need a parking deck. Well, you're not gonna, that restaurant's not gonna come. So at some point we need to narrow that down. It's gonna be some time between now and when we get to that kind of phase 2 of this, that we'll have to figure out a site, kind of an ideal plan. I usually recommend a step. Parking decks are extremely expensive to build and maintain. So that's a big thought of if you can always start with a surface lot and you can always build a parking deck if the demand gets there. But so maybe the surface parking lot's usually much easier for an association or someone to take on. So we'll look at those different options, and it can maybe be a phased approach even on that.
And I would even say, like, if you build a parking garage and you don't have that capacity, that's an expensive and a pretty big waste of space, for having a parking garage. And I know one of the early concepts was going to be a parking garage at Zabaki Plaza, and and a theater. And theaters are outmoded, just like it was in the original I-80 World district, right? But so sometimes the fact that whatever reason those projects didn't come to fruition, it was probably a better thing,
If they're used and there's a need for them, and
they're perfect.
It supports the need for them. I've used the one in Downers Grove all the time. It's kind of right in the center. It's hidden in the back. It's well located, and I think that drives. It costs money to maintain for the city, right? But they also sell parking passes, and it really drives some economic development around there. So there's good reasons to have them and do them. There's also, if you're just throwing one out there, throw it out there. It usually doesn't
worse
end
than
well.
a brand new empty store that's not being used is a brand new empty parking garage that's being unused.
I think also just from our perspective and from a more of a private side is if we can offer that amenity centralized, each lot needs less impervious surface, needs less parking, and really picks up that more driving activity driving, like walking, people using the site. Like I said, like Rosemont comes to mind. Downtown Downers Grove definitely is a great example too of just I always park in that parking
And you
deck.
maybe even pick up another lot. So from a financial perspective, when you do that, from the developer standpoint, they're looking at, well, we don't really want to invest in a parking lot. But if they could pick up another developable lot because, they consolidated the parking, that's usually how financially you can have it work out. So, but we need some bigger planning, right? We got to have a little better idea of what type of users we're going to get out here. This is really step 1 of that, right? As soon as me and Carolyn and Pat and our staff, we're going to start promoting this pretty well from an economic development perspective. The moment we can now say Topgolf's coming, here's some conceptual plans, we're going to have a better idea of who's coming. I think we'll have a better idea of what that parking looks like later.
And that's what this open item 1 is asking about too, is the way it's structured right now in the proposed PUD is that Topgolf will develop and then user number 2 is when we start working on this master plan. So lot 5 was the one that was highlighted in blue on the presentation. That is developable currently, and there's stormwater facilities available or need to be modified, but generally available. Should that lot 5 be the trigger, or should it be whoever comes after lot 5 is the trigger? So it's, do we want to give that extra developable lot before this planning work comes and starts happening, or do we want it to happen before lot 5 gets developed?
I'd say either or is fine. I think once you guys come in and that's out of a floodplain, if you wanna build those together at the same time, I see no reason why that wouldn't happen, right? Maybe, well, you can get food at Top Golf, so, unless you had a restaurant, but like if you're going in there, you usually buy some drink and some food, but something, I have no, I'm not against that. I don't think there's a need. I think Top Golf will have success there. 100%. I think it's unique. People will flood to it. You just have to have safe roads, safe sidewalks, probably public transportation. If that gets built out though, where you got 19 lots being used, I think they'll have to get a traffic signal at Prosperity and Oak Park Avenue, 5 Lane Oak Park Avenue. But I know that's not in your purview per se, but I think, whoever you talk to, have discussions with, you should have some sort of future punch list of.
They're looking at it, and it's kind of actually beneficial that like the project isn't happening right now before they build, because the way they look at traffic demands and stuff, now that this is pretty well set, it'll be going through the public process. Now as they're designing that, they're gonna, Topgolf's gonna change it, even just having this master plan to put in front of IDOT and Cook County and our engineers. Now they can start to see, okay, now we actually have an idea, instead of just guessing on areas that have been vacant for this long, now they have something a little harder. So I think this is actually helpful in the way it's happening. I don't think it'll be a major traffic issue. They just are gonna need to coordinate on the Friday, Saturday nights when, the big acts come.
Right.
Most of them actually aren't that bad anymore. I've gone to quite a few, but it's just those really high level acts when Janet Jackson, Jimmy Buffett comes, and I think they're perfectly willing to coordinate. We have a really good sergeant that's in charge of that, commander, that can coordinate everything.
I agree, it's not every concert, for sure. Any other comments from the commission?
I have a question, sorry. When do you expect to start construction?
Well, I think we're, this is obviously a very initial dialogue. We're still considering our options. We think, Tinley Park can certainly be a great fit, but as long as we continue to drive through the permitting and work with the village, they've been so responsive and great to work with. The goal would be turned around within a year once we get permitted.
And then just to, put on the record, I am amenable to, lot 5 being developed outside of, before the master planning. I guess one thing maybe to think about is just kind of carrying over any standard PUD standards, if you can attach them as conditions. And then one other thing just off the top of my head that may be helpful for the commissioners is maybe seeing some sort of spec building shown on that lot. I don't know if it was in the plans or if I missed it, but just showing kind of like the buildable area or the expected impervious per the, regulations that Tinley has. I think that would be super helpful.
And one thing to add to that, for the feasibility of lot 5, we would build in some contingency into our pond so that it would consider like X amount of impervious area, so that we would, no matter what they're putting in there, they'd be safe to build out and be a fully developable area.
We could even do, just at least, it might even help us from a marketing perspective on that lot, to just kind of go, hey, roughly here's the size of the building, and adequate parking and how that could look. We could even maybe do that internally, just to kind of show a layout that could work there.
With that said, any other comments?
Can I just jump in real
Yeah,
quick
sure.
and just verify some things? So
Yeah.
I have my open items up here. Number one, I'm gonna add we're gonna say lots 5 through 9 can be developed before the master plan's triggered. I'll give you guys some time to look at the list. When I come back, for the public hearing, I will just have a permitted uses, special uses list, and we'll combine the Rich Township, what we did here. This was more of we're taking this out, adding in. But if I'll give you the whole list, then you can see this is exactly what's gonna be here, and this is exactly what's gonna be a special use.
Along with some examples of what's happened elsewhere.
Correct. I think we're all amenable to the centralized parking. That was just feedback I was looking for. And I'll give you guys some time if you have any questions about the overall size limits, things like that. Think about it. We'll be back for the public hearing. If you have anything else, you can always contact me as well and actually Michael as well, because we're both on this project. So
Size limit is about the masonry
for
requirements.
masonry requirements, yeah. That was really the only architectural thing that we were kind of like, well, we don't want to say no for everyone, but we do want to still focus on some leniency.
I would love to see the larger, buildings have some sort of masonry involved. Just, I guess, one thing for Topgolf, maybe it would be the EFIS one or the AP one that hopefully could be amenable to some sort of maybe brick or stone veneer. I think there's the Naperville one that maybe has that sort of architecture. I'm not totally against the metal or the EFIS, but I would love to see some sort of incorporation of that. And the rest of the size limitations I'm comfortable with.
Okay, any other comments? You got everything you need from us?
Yeah, that's what I needed from just direction, so I have a full public hearing staff report.
John, I want to commend you for standing up there for about a good part of an hour. Part of it was we had questions for you, but part of it is we combined both. So there was a little bit of mixing of stuff, but I thank you for your patience and stuff.
No, I think that was a lot more efficient to knock them both out at once, so I appreciate that.
And I do want to say, I've been to Topgolf, it was fun. I'm not a golfer, I had a blast. I did pretty well too. So I know if you guys do look at Trinity Park, the people will come. That is a nice attraction to have in our own backyard. So I appreciate your patience today. You can sit down.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Public hearings planned for July 18th.
Okay, public hearing is July 18th. With that said, we will move on to the good of the order. Staff, do you have anything to present for the good of the order?
So we don't have a July 4th meeting, so happy birthday, America. And then, so we are trying to, because we don't have that, we're trying to schedule a special July 11th meeting. It would be just a workshop for the comprehensive plan. So we received the first draft of the existing conditions report this week. Staff's doing an initial review. We're gonna get back. Hopefully we'll have like 90%, 95% version done by July 3rd to get out to you all. We're gonna try and do more of either tables down here, open concept, or Carlson. We haven't really decided yet, but Michael sent out an email asking for everyone's availability. So this is just a reminder, if you got that, just let him or me know if you can make that, because we do actually need a quorum. We will need 5 members. We'll have some extra people coming too to help give their input. So it should be really good. It's I didn't get to read all 120 pages yet, but it looks really good and goes over quite a bit. So really excited about that. Dan, do you have anything else on the go to the order, development wise?
I think,
Topgolf's pretty much.
Yeah, Gas and Wash should be getting a full permit tomorrow on LaGrange and 183rd. So obviously they already have a site work permit because there's a lot of ground being moved out there. Obviously difficult site. You guys all saw it come through here. A lot of challenges with it. So looking forward to that. The Marriott projects are moving along. Make Use apartments are moving along. Brookside Villas, the duplexes that are buying in Newson are under construction. Brixmor's Phase 2 is under construction with Ross Dress for Less going in there. Pete's has really started flying along. Obviously, timing didn't work out the way we wanted it to, but we think this time around they're on a good track to open spring next year. So, what else? There's a lot of stuff happening in town. Now I got a Topgolf and the Chick-fil-A.
the,
Building officials having a really good
The Pete's timeline got approved by Village Board, and so did the Tinley Court Apartments for assisted living.
I'm sure I'm missing something else, but just a lot of the projects that have come through here are all out there moving along. So if you guys ever have any questions or anything, let us know, because I think you guys like seeing them kind of come to fruition too. So
I've seen the Harmony Square video, you can actually watch the video.
yeah, I didn't say Harmony Square. But yeah, that one's,
We all know.
there's like the time lapse video out there and stuff.
Foundations.
The foundations are in, they're pouring the walls.
I caught it on Facebook, so I just,
It's through our website. If you go to the current projects, I think there's a dedicated one for Harmony Square, and they kind of have a time lapse video. It's usually like a day behind or something, but it's pretty cool to watch what's happening. And that it fell a little bit behind there, like every project is this spring, with how wet it was. But they're quickly catching back up right now with the way the weather's been. So they were actually pouring walls. I think yesterday. So at 8 a.m. they're out there pouring walls, so they're moving every day. And that's gonna be awesome to see out there.
it's really awesome.
And the interior stuff even looks actually even better in it. So like the outside was a lot, but they focused a lot on the interior and how that's gonna work in all these buildings. So excited for that. Again, I know I'm missing something, but there's a lot. The comp plan, the streetscape plan, we're working on the streetscape plan, you guys should see that soon too. Which is really in a continuation of Harmony Square. So we're doing obviously a lot of the streetscape with that. South Street got partially improved with the streetscape. And then we have the private, West Point at Harmony Square next to the plaza. And so if we have all that happening, this will really tie it all together down Oak Park Avenue. Have all the same lights, the same tree styles, have the same layouts, the same feel. And my hope is really, I'll say it to everyone and usually everyone nods, it's like slow down traffic on Oak Park Avenue through the downtown. Because we got cars going 40, never having to stop through there. And it's difficult to walk around there. You definitely don't feel safe. So I'm hoping with the streetscape plan, we get some of those improvements, and everybody feels a little better. Really, downtown being a place you want to just go walk around, bring your dog, bring your kids, go walk from the plaza over to the Scoop and not feel like you're darting around traffic. So lots of stuff happening.
Sounds good. Okay. With that, we'll move on to receiving comments from the public. Okay, no comments, and then we'll move to adjourning the meeting. May I have a motion to close the meeting?
So,
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Manning and seconded by Commissioner Stokos. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. This meeting is ended or adjourned at 9 p.m.